In the heart of a small mountain village named Winterspire, snow blanketed every rooftop and pathway, creating a pristine, untouched world of white. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of pine and burning wood. Every cottage glowed warmly against the chill, their frosted windows revealing the golden flicker of hearth fires within. The village square was adorned with strings of twinkling lights that reflected off the snow, casting gentle, colorful hues on the ground. A towering Christmas tree stood in the center, its branches heavy with ornaments and garlands, though its peak was curiously bare. Villagers whispered of the missing golden star that once crowned the tree, a symbol of unity and hope that had vanished many years ago. Inside one of the coziest cottages, a young boy named Thomas sat by the window. He was no more than 8 years old, with bright eyes that sparkled like the frost patterns on the glass. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, coating the world in a dreamlike stillness. Thomas leaned his chin on his hands, gazing out at the snowy garden. His heart was filled with wonder and a quiet longing. His grandmother had told him tales of the golden star, how it had once shone so brightly that it lit up the entire village and brought joy to everyone who saw it. But now, the tree stood incomplete, its spirit dimmed by the absence of its crown. "I wish I could find it," Thomas whispered to himself. The room was silent, except for the occasional crackle of the fire. As he spoke, something caught his eye, a flicker of light outside, faint but unmistakable. It shimmered just beyond the garden gate, dancing like a firefly in the snowy air. Thomas sat up straight, his curiosity piqued. Wrapping himself in a thick coat and scarf, he quietly slipped on his boots and stepped out into the night. The golden light beckoned him, pulsing softly as it drifted toward the forest at the edge of the village. The cold night air kissed Thomas's cheeks as he walked through the snow. His breath came out in soft puffs, and the only sound was the crunch of his boots on the icy ground. The village lights grew dimmer behind him as he approached the forest. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with snow. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. Thomas felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he followed the golden light. It danced ahead of him, weaving between the trees as if it knew the way. Occasionally, it paused, waiting for Thomas to catch up before continuing deeper into the woods. As he walked, the air seemed to change. It grew warmer, and the scent of pine mingled with something sweeter, like freshly baked cookies. Faintly, Thomas thought he heard the sound of bells, so soft it was almost a whisper. The golden light finally came to a stop in a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a wooden arch, covered in frost and sparkling faintly in the moonlight. The light hovered before the arch, pulsing gently. Thomas hesitated for a moment, then stepped through the arch. The moment Thomas stepped through the arch, the forest transformed. The snow sparkled as though made of diamonds, and the trees glimmered faintly with hues of silver and gold. It was as if he had entered a different world, one filled with magic and wonder. Ahead of him, the golden light floated above the ground, growing brighter. Slowly, it began to take shape. Before his astonished eyes, the light transformed into a small, glowing figure, a star sprite. The sprite was no taller than Thomas's hand and had wings that shimmered like sunlight on water. Its voice was soft and melodic as it spoke. "Thomas, you have been chosen to restore the golden star." "Me?" Thomas asked, wide-eyed. The sprite nodded. "The golden star is not just an ornament. It is the heart of Christmas, a symbol of hope and light. It can only be restored by someone with a pure heart." "What do I have to do?" Thomas asked. The sprite smiled. "You must gather 3 fragments of the star's light, hidden in the magical lands beyond this forest. Each fragment represents as a gift of Christmas, kindness, courage, and joy." With a wave of its tiny hand, the sprite conjured a path of glowing snowflakes that led deeper into the magical world. "Follow the path and you will find what you seek." Thomas began his journey down the glowing path, the sprite hovering beside him. The first destination was a small, snow-covered village where elves were busily preparing gifts. The air was filled with the sound of laughter and the hum of activity. In the center of the village, Thomas saw a young elf struggling to fix a broken toy. The elf's face was full of worry. "This is the last gift, but I can't fix it," the elf said. Thomas knelt beside the elf and offered to help. Together, they carefully repaired the toy, and when it was finished, it shone with a golden light. A small fragment of the golden star appeared, floating into Thomas's hand. "You've shown kindness," the sprite said. "The first gift is yours." The path continued to a frozen lake, where a reindeer stood alone, its head lowered. "What's wrong?" Thomas asked. The reindeer looked up with sad eyes. "I've lost my courage. I can no longer lead the sleigh." Thomas placed a hand on the reindeer's neck. "You can do it. I believe in you." With Thomas's encouragement, the reindeer spread its wings and leapt into the air, soaring above the lake. As it flew, a second fragment of the star appeared, joining the first in Thomas's hand. Finally, the path led to a magical grove filled with glowing flowers. There, Thomas met a family of snowmen who had lost their joy. Their smiles were gone, and their laughter had faded. Thomas began to tell them stories of his adventures, describing the elves, the reindeer, and the magical world he had seen. Slowly, the snowmen began to smile, and their laughter returned. as they laughed, the final fragment of the star appeared. "You've brought joy," the sprite said. "Now the star can be restored." The sprite guided Thomas to the top of a hill where a great tree stood. Its branches were bare, and the sky above it was dark. Thomas held the fragments of the star in his hands. "What do I do now?" he asked. "Place them on the tree," the sprite said. Thomas reached out and placed the fragments on the highest branch. The fragments began to glow, merging into a single, radiant star. Light burst forth, illuminating the entire hill and spreading across the magical world. The tree came alive, its branches covered in glittering ornaments and lights. The sky filled with stars, and the air was filled with the sound of bells and laughter. "Thank you, Thomas," the sprite said. "You have restored the golden star and the spirit of Christmas." As the magical world began to fade, Thomas found himself back in his snowy garden. The village lights glowed warmly in the distance, and the night sky was brighter than ever, with the golden star shining at its center. He walked back into his cottage, his heart full of warmth and wonder. The fire crackled softly, and the room felt cozier than ever. As Thomas climbed into bed, he smiled, knowing he had brought back something special for everyone in Winterspire. Outside, the snow continued to fall, wrapping the world in a peaceful hush. And as the village slept beneath the starlit sky, the golden star shone brightly, a beacon of hope and light for all who believed. In the heart of Frosthaven, a small village nestled in the valley of snow-covered mountains, Christmas Eve unfolded in serene beauty. The sky was a deep velvet blue, dotted with countless stars that seemed to dance above the world. Snow blanketed the village like a soft, glimmering quilt, muffling every sound except for the faint rustling of the wind. In every window, golden lights twinkled, reflecting off the icicles hanging from rooftops. The streets were lined with festive decorations, holly wreaths, glowing lanterns, and ribbons tied around lampposts. A towering Christmas tree stood proudly in the town square, its ornaments glinting in the light of the moon. In a cozy little house at the edge of the village, a young girl named Amara sat by the fireplace. She was no older than 10, with chestnut hair that curled over her shoulders and wide, curious eyes. The fire crackled softly, its warmth filling the room, while the faint aroma of cinnamon lingered in the air. Amara held a steaming mug of cocoa in her hands as she gazed at an old bell resting on the mantel above the fire. It was tarnished and worn, but something about it always drew her attention. Her grandmother had told her stories about the Bell of Winter, a magical artifact that had once brought peace and light to the world during the darkest winters. Amara's grandmother often said, The bell holds the song of winter itself, but it only rings when the world truly needs it. Yet the bell had been silent for years, and many had forgotten its legend. As she stared at the bell, Amara felt a strange pull in her heart, a quiet longing she couldn't quite explain. The night outside seemed unusually still, and just as she was about to look away, a faint sound reached her ears, a soft, melodic chime. Her eyes widened. She turned toward the window, where snowflakes swirled like tiny stars in the glow of the moonlight. Somewhere in the distance, the sound came again, clearer this time, a bell ringing softly, its tone both haunting and beautiful. Amara quickly wrapped herself in her warmest coat and scarf, slipped on her boots, and stepped outside. The bell's melody called to her, its sound weaving through the night like a thread of magic. The cold air nipped at Amara's cheeks as she stepped into the snowy night. Her breath puffed out in soft clouds, and her boots crunched with each step she took. The village lay quiet, its lights glowing faintly against the blanket of snow. The bell's chime echoed faintly, coming from beyond the edge of the village. Amara felt her heart quicken as she followed the sound, her footsteps leading her toward the forest that bordered Frosthaven. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with snow. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting shimmering patterns on the ground. The air was alive with an unspoken magic, a feeling of anticipation that made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. The sound of the bell grew stronger as Amara ventured deeper into the woods. It was no longer just a melody. It felt like a voice calling to her with a gentle urgency. She paused for a moment, looking around, when she noticed a faint glow ahead. Through the trees, she saw a clearing bathed in silver light. Snowflakes sparkled as they fell, and at the center of the clearing stood a figure cloaked in white. The figure turned toward her, revealing the kind face of a winter spirit. "Amara," the spirit said, her voice soft and lilting. "You've heard the call of the bell of winter." Amara hesitated, her heart pounding. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I am Elowin, guardian of the bell of winter," the spirit replied. Her presence was calming, like the gentle hush of falling snow. "The bell has rung for the first time in many years, and it has chosen you." "Me?" Amara asked, her brows furrowing. "But I'm just a girl. What can I do?" "The bell's song is fading," Elowin said, her expression growing solemn. "It needs to be restored before the winter's magic is lost. The bell represents hope, courage, and kindness, qualities that must be rekindled to keep the season's spirit alive." Amara felt a spark of determination. "What do I need to do?" Elowin smiled. "You must find the 3 keys of winter, each one hidden in a different magical realm. These keys will restore the bell's song and bring light back to the season. With a wave of her hand, Elowen created a shimmering portal in the snow. Step through, and your journey will begin. Taking a deep breath, Amara stepped through the portal and found herself in a world unlike any she had ever seen. The first realm Amara entered was a village made entirely of ice. The houses glimmered like crystals, and the streets sparkled underfoot. The villagers were snowmen, their button eyes twinkling with warmth. "Welcome, traveler," said the tallest snowman, tipping his top hat. "You've come to find the first key, haven't you?" Amara nodded. "Yes, I need to restore the Bell of Winter. The first key lies in the heart of the village," the snowman said, "but it can only be earned through an act of kindness." Amara noticed a group of snow children trying to build a snow castle, their tiny stick arms struggling with the heavy blocks of ice. She quickly joined them, helping to lift the pieces and shape them into a grand castle. The children laughed and cheered, their joy lighting up the village. As the castle was completed, a glowing blue key appeared in the air. Amara reached out and took it, feeling its cold warmth in her hand. The second realm was a forest of shimmering frost, where every tree glowed faintly with an inner light. Here, Amara encountered a frightened reindeer tangled in a web of ice. Its wide eyes pleaded for help, and Amara approached cautiously. "Don't be afraid," she said softly, using her scarf to gently free the reindeer from the icy strands. Once it was free, the reindeer nuzzled her hand, and a second key, this one glowing green, appeared at her feet. The final realm was a vast snowy plain under a sky filled with dancing auroras. At the center of the plain stood a lone bell tower, its structure old and crumbling. Inside, Amara found a group of tiny elves trying to ring the bell but failing to reach its rope. Amara climbed the rickety steps of the tower and pulled the rope with all her might. The bell rang out, its sound pure and clear, and the final key, glowing gold, appeared in her hand. With the 3 keys in her possession, Amara returned to the clearing where Elowen awaited her. The Bell of Winter floated in the air, its surface dull and silent. "Place the keys within the bell," Elowen instructed. Amara stepped forward and inserted each key into the bell. As the final key clicked into place, the bell began to glow, its light spreading across the clearing. A soft chime rang out, growing louder and more beautiful with each passing moment. The bell's song filled the air, reaching far beyond the forest. It carried a warmth that melted away the coldest fears and rekindled hope in every heart. The light from the bell spread across the land, bringing new life to the snow and stars. Lowen smiled. "You have restored the magic of winter, Amara. The Bell of Winter will ring for generations to come, thanks to you." Amara found herself back in her cozy cottage, the fire crackling softly in the hearth. The bell of winter now sat on the mantel, glowing faintly with a soft, golden light. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the village in a peaceful hush. The stars above shone brighter than ever, and the faint chime of the bell lingered in the air. As Amara climbed into bed, she felt a warmth in her heart that she had never known before. The world seemed brighter, filled with the promise of hope and magic. And as Frosthaven slept beneath the shimmering sky, the bell of winter sang its timeless song, a melody of light, love, and the enduring spirit of Christmas. In the quiet village of Starry Hollow, nestled among snow-covered hills and evergreen forests, Christmas Eve had arrived with a gentle hush. Snow fell steadily, blanketing the rooftops and cobblestone streets in a sparkling, pristine layer of white. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of pine and wood smoke from chimneys that puffed out lazy trails of smoke. The village was alight with the glow of Christmas cheer. Twinkling fairy lights adorned the eaves of every cottage, reflecting on the icy surfaces below. A grand Christmas tree stood proudly in the center of the square, its branches heavy with glittering ornaments and strings of silver tinsel. Yet, at the top, a small lantern sat dark and unlit, a symbol of hope that had not shone in years. Inside one of the coziest cottages at the edge of the village, a boy named Ethan sat by the window, his nose pressed to the frosty glass. He was no older than 10, with tousled brown hair and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. His breath fogged the window as he gazed out at the snow, watching the flakes dance and swirl in the glow of the streetlights. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. The scent of cinnamon and freshly baked cookies lingered in the air, but Ethan's thoughts were far away. His grandmother had often told him stories of the Christmas lantern, how it once glowed brighter than any star, lighting up the entire village and bringing joy to all who saw it. But no one had seen it shine for many years, and the legend had faded into quiet memory. Ethan sighed, his small hands resting on the windowsill. "I wish I could see the lantern glow again," he whispered, the words barely audible over the sound of the fire. As if in answer to his wish, a soft golden light appeared in the garden just beyond the window. It flickered like a tiny flame, brightening for a moment before disappearing into the snow. Ethan blinked in surprise, his heart leaping with curiosity. He grabbed his coat and scarf, quickly bundling up against the cold, and stepped outside into the snowy night. The air was still and filled with an expectant silence. The golden light appeared again, further away now, beckoning him toward the edge of the forest. The cold air kissed Ethan's cheeks, turning them rosy as he trudged through the snow. His boots left crisp, perfect imprints behind him, the sound of each step muffled by the soft powder. The village lights faded into the distance, replaced by the silvery glow of moonlight reflecting off the snowy landscape. The forest loomed ahead, its towering pines dusted with snow that shimmered faintly in the light. Ethan hesitated at the edge, but the golden glow pulsed again, illuminating a narrow path between the trees. The faint sound of a bell accompanied the light, its tone soft and melodic, like a lullaby carried on the wind. Ethan felt a shiver of excitement mixed with wonder as he stepped into the forest. The air grew colder, but it was alive with magic. Snowflakes fell lazily, glinting like tiny diamonds, and the scent of pine grew stronger, mingling with something sweet and warm, like gingerbread. The golden light flitted ahead of him, pausing occasionally as if to wait for him. Ethan quickened his pace, his curiosity growing with every step. The forest seemed endless, but then the trees opened into a clearing bathed in a silvery glow. At the center of the clearing stood an old, weathered lantern, its glass cracked but still intact. Beside it was a figure cloaked in white, their presence serene and otherworldly. The figure turned, revealing a kind face framed by flowing silver hair. "Welcome, Ethan," the figure said, their voice soft yet clear. "I am Lyric, keeper of the Christmas lantern. It has called to you because it needs your help." Ethan stared in awe at the lantern and the mysterious figure beside it. "Why has the lantern stopped glowing?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyric's expression grew solemn. "The Christmas lantern is powered by the light of hope, but over time, the hearts of those in the village have grown dim. Without hope, the lantern cannot shine." Ethan frowned, his heart sinking. "Is there a way to bring it back?" Lyric nodded, a small smile returning to their face. "Yes, but it will not be easy. You must journey to the 3 realms of light and gather the fragments of hope hidden there. Only then can the lantern's flame be rekindled." Before Ethan could respond, Lyric waved their hand, and the air around them shimmered like sunlight on water. A glowing path appeared, leading deeper into the forest. "Follow this path," Lyric said. "It will take you to the first realm." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped onto the glowing path. The forest transformed around him, the trees fading into shadows as a new world unfolded. The first realm Ethan entered was a valley blanketed in golden light. The air was warm and fragrant, filled with the sound of laughter. At the center of the valley was a village where people worked together, building homes and tending gardens. Ethan noticed a group of children struggling to lift a heavy beam for a new house. Without hesitation, he ran to help them, his small hands adding strength to theirs. Together, they lifted the beam into place, and a soft golden fragment of light appeared, floating into Ethan's hands. "The light of hope comes from kindness," a voice whispered on the wind. The path reappeared, leading Ethan to the second realm, a shimmering lake surrounded by tall, frosty trees. At the center of the lake was a small boat, but the water had turned to ice, trapping it in place. Ethan knelt by the edge of the lake, his breath visible in the cold air. He placed his hands on the ice, willing it to melt. Slowly, the ice began to thaw, and the boat floated free. Blue fragment of light rose from the water, joining the golden one in Ethan's hand. "Hope is born from courage," the voice whispered again. The final realm was a vast snowy field under a sky filled with dancing auroras. At the center of the field was a lone figure kneeling beside a dying fire. The figure looked up as Ethan approached, their face weary but hopeful. "Can you help me?" they asked. Ethan knelt beside them and added wood to the fire, blowing gently on the embers until the flames roared to life. A red fragment of light appeared, completing the trio in Ethan's hand. "Hope is sustained by compassion," the voice said. With the 3 fragments of hope glowing brightly in his hand, Ethan returned to the clearing where Lyric awaited him. The Christmas lantern stood at the center, its glass reflecting the fragments' light. "Place them inside," Lyric instructed, their voice filled with warmth. Ethan stepped forward and carefully placed the fragments into the lantern. The light swirled within, growing brighter and brighter until it burst forth in a dazzling glow. The clearing was bathed in golden light, and Ethan felt a warmth in his chest that spread to every corner of his being. The light of the lantern rose into the sky, casting its glow over the village of Starry Hollow. The once dim lantern atop the town's Christmas tree lit up, its light shining brighter than ever before. "The light of hope has returned," Lyric said, their eyes sparkling with gratitude. "You have rekindled the hearts of many, Ethan. Thank you." Ethan found himself back in his cozy cottage, the fire crackling softly in the hearth. Through the window, he could see the lantern atop the Christmas tree glowing warmly, its light reaching every corner of the village. Snow continued to fall gently, blanketing the world in a peaceful hush. The air felt different now, warmer, brighter, filled with hope. As Ethan climbed into bed, he smiled, his heart full of wonder and joy. Outside, the Christmas lantern's light shone like a beacon, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could always be rekindled. And as Starry Hollow slept beneath the starlit sky, the lantern's glow wrapped the world in light, love, and the unbreakable spirit of Christmas.